two high character, competitive, tough, high IQ players. And that's how we identify what a Clipper is. Both these guys are great representatives of who we are and the direction we're going. First with Shea, you talk about a guy who just has a huge chip on his shoulder and has an unbelievable work ethic and drive to be a great player. So when he was recruited to Kentucky, he was the quote-unquote least heralded recruit. By the middle of, he wasn't starting until the middle of January. From that point on, he was the best player on the team. He's the type of young man, work ethic, he would work out at 5:30 every single morning. He's driven, he has an intensity about him, he has a drive to be great, he has a very, very professional, serious approach. Another great thing about Shea is he wanted to be a Clipper. And we want people who want to be a part of us, who want to grow with us. I think when you look at what Steve Ballmer has been able to do, the goal is to be competing for championships for a sustainable period of time, and we need to continue to grow with high character people. So Shea, we're really, really excited about. And then Jerome is a guy that we targeted early on in this process. Probably one of the more gifted all-around offensive players in the country. He's another guy, if you study the DNA, okay? He grew up Raleigh, North Carolina. North Carolina State had an opportunity. Literally, he was like, one of his closest friends was the head coach's son. He doesn't get a scholarship there. He goes to Boston College, leading scorer in the ACC, one of the top players in the conference, and he just grinds and he works. Very, very impressive as a young man, very, very high character, very bright. And I think what you'll see with both these guys is it's the character, the competitiveness, the toughness. And we have guys like that here, and that's who we want to attract. And we're really, really excited with how fortunate we were. In regards to Shea, it was one of those things where we targeted him very early in the process. We thought he was the best point guard in the draft. When you think about the NBA and where it's going with the size, the length, his ability to get into the paint. And so our front office group and scouts really did a terrific job early on with the identification, and then two, strategically, to be able to find a way to set it up with Charlotte, to be able to throw in 2 additional second-round picks. And the draft is really an organizational approach that literally everyone plays a part in it, and it's really, really gratifying to see everyone's hard work pay off in the 2 guys we targeted, and we're super excited.
The idea that you drafted the guys you did, you didn't go after a big man. Is there a message there that you guys are comfortable that DJ is coming back, that you'll be able to retain him?
Well, I think, one of the things going into the draft, what we prioritize is draft the best available talent. We don't go by need, we go by the best available talent that fit what Clipper characteristics are all about.
Shea talked about he's an alpha dog, and that's why he fits the Clippers. What do you see in his quote alpha dog characteristics?
He's a grinder. There's that intensity. Steve talks a lot about hardcore, and if you're around the guy and you just stay with him, start at 5 in the morning, and you see him work, for a 19-year-old young man, his professional approach is unbelievable. Last year I saw him at the Hoop Summit, and I'm looking at him going, man, he's just okay, right? The improvement he showed in basically a 9-month period, he's one of the most improved players in the country. You don't do that by waving a magic wand. There's no substitute for hard work. So that alphaness, we want people who have that personality, because we got to keep driving. The Clippers, we're a challenger brand. We're going to do it better. We're going to prove it harder. But in order to be a hard-playing, tough team, you need some hard-playing, tough guys. And Shea and Jerome both are that.
Shea said that he reportedly didn't work out for many teams, but he said that when he did meet with you guys, went to dinner, he said that he clicked immediately with Jerry and with Doc. What was some of the things that was said that led to that clicking so easily?
I think Shea has a great way about him. When we first met with him in Chicago, he talked a lot about servant leadership. So there are some people lead just by the law of attraction, and if the one thing that really got us, excited about Shea is when you talk to his teammates and you said, who's the hardest worker? SGA. Who's the best connector? SGA. And I think when he spent time with us in Chicago, then we were able to take him out to dinner. I think, Doc did a great job with him. I think there was a definite connection there. Jerry obviously is a huge, huge asset to the organization. I think, when you have Steve as an owner, I think just Shea, he felt it. And when I dropped Shea off at his place, he talked about, what? People say, hey, when are you going to come back home? And they mean Toronto. This is home. LA.
Mark Stein had said that there might have been discussions with San Antonio about possibly using your lottery picks for Kawhi Leonard. Are there any discussions tonight?
We don't comment on any team's other players.
Lawrence, with Shea, Doc Rivers has obviously had a lot of success with developing guards before out of Kentucky, like Rajon Rondo. Did that play into it at all?
Well, look, we trust Doc in terms of, and I think Doc showed this year the development of all our young players, but it's not necessarily the school. We've known Cal for a long, long time. We go way back with him. So we have great respect for the program. The fact that Doc's a former point guard, I think, obviously helps. The developmental staff that we've put around Doc, I think, has done a great job. But I think it starts with Shea. Ultimately, at the end of the day, is what we don't want to do. We don't want to beg guys to work. And with Shea, he's a self-starter. And because this league, 116 practices, 82 games, 8 exhibition games, if you're begging guys to work, it can't last. You need guys who are intrinsically motivated, who they're getting after it. And that's how you get great improvement. So where you see Shea 12 months ago is here, now he's here, he's just going to keep rising to the level, and he has a growth mindset, right? He knows, like, hey, there's areas I have to get better at. He wants to attack it. And that's the other thing that Jerome embodies as well. And you just look at their improvement curve. It was funny when we were talking about Jerome and we were interviewing other players from the conference. We would say, who's the hardest guy to guard? And it was always one guy. And you think about the ACC's not a bunch of chumps, right? They're pretty good. And it was always Jerome Robinson. Jerome, again, has that, he has that little chip on his shoulder that wants to prove everyone that, yeah, I'm pretty good too.
With there being a couple of unknowns in terms of player options and a lot of guards on the team, how quickly do you anticipate these two, getting acclimated with the team and playing heavy minutes?
Look, it's always a process. You never can quite predict. What you try to do from an organizational standpoint, you try to provide them with all the resources they need to be able to be as good as they can be. The expectations, I think the great thing about both these guys, they have both such high expectations of themselves. Our organization will push them, will support them, and I think the process will kind of define the results.
Jerome talked about coming out here last summer, and he said it was, quote, life-changing. As you mentioned, led the ACC in scoring. Did you guys, when you were interviewing him, did he talk about that, and was that a factor, or was it strictly just his talent?
Yeah, it was really interesting because it was a little bit of an epiphany for him. So he pays his own way. He spends 2 months out here. And the first thing, he told a funny story. The first day he woke up at 7:30 to go train on the beach, and he realized something. There's something called LA traffic. So it took him an hour to get to the beach. He goes, forget this. So then he woke up at 6 in the morning. And so he'd work out an hour on the beach. Then he'd go and he'd do basketball skill development work for 2 hours in Santa Monica. And then he started to play with NBA players. And he realized after having success, he said, you know what? I'm good enough. And I think sometimes you need to continue to experience that success, and you need that validation when you're going against some of the better players in the league. And then I think he carried that over in Boston College. And if you get an opportunity, you watch any of his games, he is an unbelievable. If you just study nonverbal body language, how he picks teammates up, regardless of the play, he just moves on to the next play. His parents have done an unbelievable job. If you just see the character on the court. And but I think coming out to LA was a huge part of his growth, development, and also confidence to know that he's a really good player.
How much of a grace period do you give these young players to kind of, like you said, get acclimated and make sure that they're kind of up to speed and where you guys want them to be before the season starts?
We'll give them the night. It's a huge learning curve. We don't believe in lowering the bar; it's raising the bar, and we have, you just think about the best players in the world are going to go through ebbs and flows, and you just try to continue to support them and make sure they have a good developmental plan. And the plan isn't just on the court, it's off the court as well, because we have to remember, Shea's 19, Jerome's 21, and they're coming to a major city. So you want to make sure as an organization, we're giving them the total support so they can grow both on and off the court.
Is there any worry about, the LA has a lot of distractions, especially for young players. Is there any worry regarding that, or do you anticipate having to talk to them about that kind of stuff at all?
Well, the great thing is LA is by far the best marketplace in the world, okay? And I'm from New Jersey, and I'm saying that. But you bring up a good point, and that's why we want serious-minded, hardcore basketball players that understand their priorities, right? They have family, faith, and basketball. It's got to be a top 3 priority. If there's other things that are like filter into that stuff, well, that would be a concern in a city as great as this. But with these guys, we have 100% confidence. They know where the priorities are.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Sure. Thanks. Have a great night. Appreciate you waiting.